journey. So there might be a few people turning up a bit late. I know this is a tricky time, so thank you to everyone who's come today. I just want to acknowledge all the amazing people in the room. We've got our 3 companies, CodeBots, WorkingMouse and Rogue2. So thank you to all the team that have supported me to come and do this crazy trip. We've also got a range of amazing champions, customers, friends, people who used to work at our team. I don't want to say ex, but you know, old community builders. I've got someone I worked with 20 years ago that's also in this world now. Lise has been the most amazing support. We've got investors, advisors, all sorts of people in this audience, and potential new champions of our technology. People we met at conferences 3 years ago that just we can't seem to not keep colliding with each other. So yeah, a really awesome room of people. So I wanted to start with this. The theme of today is about surfing the waves of DLD, which is Digital Life Design, a conference in Germany, and the World Economic Forum. Who's heard of DLD? Anyone here know? There's a couple here. Who's heard of the World Economic Forum? You may have seen it on the news. Yep, okay. Who knows this crew? Yeah, I recognise a few faces. So at the start of the year, we had a strategy day, and each of our 3 companies went on a different strategy day. This is the CodeBots crew, and we went to Rainbow Bay, and this is Point Danger. Doesn't look that dangerous this day, but we wanted to go there. Evan and I were talking about when you're a startup and you're launching something new into the world, part of it is about knowing which wave to catch. And also knowing when the waves are coming in and how to use the momentum of what's already there to get you where you need to go. So I just wanted to start with this because this was the day before I left to go to Munich. So you can imagine, I went to Germany, I got on the plane, and when I get on a plane, I always buy a magazine before I get on the plane. And the first article I read had this quote, and there's this famous Italian poet, and he has this poem. It says, "Your footsteps are the road, nothing more. Wanderer, there is no road. The road is made by walking." And so I was wearing my little pink suede shoes that I've got on today. And my way of working out the world is to draw pictures and to make sense of it. And I was like, I felt like a bit of a pioneer. We have this new platform which we launched that week that was available to the public, this CodeBots platform. I had all these people in my network that I knew wanted to do amazing things, and I was trying to work out how do I put these 2 things together. I got this incredible invitation to go to this conference, and I was like, I just need to go. I feel like there's enough ingredients here. Just find the road of where we take CodeBots and how we connect the world. And I had this feeling at the end of last year. And I don't know if you guys get like a voice in your head every now and again, and it kind of gets louder when you need to kind of make a change in your life or you need to do something. It's led me to all sorts of crazy ideas, but like, yeah, the one before that, I rode a bike around the world, so I have to be careful with the noises that I listen to. But this one was telling me that we have something in our hands here with this technology that the world needs. We just have to work out how to get it out there. I knew that I couldn't do it by myself, but I knew with the help of the champions of the people in the room here today that maybe we could work this out. So I went pretty open-minded. A little bit scared, to be honest. DLD is, sorry, I'll come back to that. 1,000 people they invite to this conference. So you can see we've got an astronaut, we've got someone with a loudspeaker, I think that's a journalist. We've got entrepreneurs, you've got scientists, engineers, startup founders, a real mix of people, and it's invitation only. And so you can't put this sort of group of people together, or you can't find this group of people anywhere else. Costs €4 just to attend 3 days, and 3 of those days are over the weekend. So these people like really want to be there, right? Luckily, I got offered a ticket to go and just sort of put CodeBots into the mix and see what happens. And so I go from 30 degrees at the beach, where I was actually still sunburnt in this photo, which is kind of a weird contrast, to this is outside the DLD hall, and got my little CodeBots bag. That was my walk on the way to get to DLD, so it was pretty special. I was like, wow, this is magic. And so this was the theme of the conference, what are you adding? So we get given this program, which has got 3 days of events. So for each day of events, hang on, let me show you. That's like 1 day of all the things that are going on. And you've got to choose maybe half a dozen of those that you're going to get to. And so you have to kind of work out, you've got to make these choices. And then they tell you that the best things of this whole conference happen in the corridors, the conversations in the corridors. So you're like, do you go in and watch something and see these amazing leaders of the world, or do you talk to this guy next to you that looks kind of interesting? And so that was kind of challenging at the start. I find I go to these conferences and I'm like, my mind's like a street sweeper. Like I'm just kind of trying to just absorb everything I can, hear all of the ideas, meet all of the people, share what I know, and then hope that some ideas will stick. And that's what happened. So I'm going to organize this into sort of some of the themes and the waves of ideas that I had on this trip. So this theme, what are you adding? So I don't know, does anybody here go to conferences very often? I think there's probably a few people that kind of like it. David, I met you at one. Often they have a theme, and this one was very much about asking you personally, what are you doing? What are you adding? What are you bringing to this conference? And it's quite a confrontational question because it really asks you to think, what am I adding? What am I going to bring to this? Why does anyone care that I'm here? And originally when I got there, I thought, oh, we've got bots and humans working together. You had to have it in 5 words as well, which kind of made it, kept it simple. And I was quite excited by that. But then I realized, who cares? Like bots and humans working together, what does that even mean? Why are they even working together? What if they're working badly? What if they, like there's all these things that went with that. And so Isaac helped me do up a little a website before I left, which was around engineering a better world. And so bots and humans working together is fantastic if it's for the right purpose. And I didn't know exactly what this was going to look like, but I knew we had this technology and I knew that there were people out there trying to do incredible things. And so if I could connect that up, I was going to ask, what are you doing to engineer a better world? So I'll just pop forward again. So here's just a few of the speakers that what I saw on stage. I just picked out a few of them. Muhammad Yunus, he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He started the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, and it was like your grandfather was on stage telling you off. You were just like, oh my gosh. He's like, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. You know that feeling? It was like, yeah, I know, we've got to sort this out. I'm sorry, Muhammad. Then we had Jeremy Rifkin, who's this like socialist economist who's got this the Green New Deal, and he's got a plan of how do we actually put this in action, not with the fourth industrial revolution, we can't wait that long. How do we use existing technologies and what we have right now to make the change we need? He made a rule, everyone phones down, you just had to be in the moment, and it was so engaging. And then you've got the founder of Snapchat, gets up there on stage with his buddy Alex Israel. Anyone know that artist? He's a pretty famous artist, and they're talking about how they're using AR, augmented reality, in Snapchat to develop different ways for people to communicate. And I'm like, oh, that sounds a bit fluffy compared to some of this heavy stuff we're talking about. But then they start talking about where they're going, and in their labs, the wearables that Snapchat are developing for the future of what even social media looks like. How do we connect and communicate with each other? And there's none of this heavy, clunky phone stuff that they're playing with. And so they were just sort of planting these little ideas in your mind. We've got Lior up there in the red shirt. He was really into protein. He had developed this spirulina that can be grown in the desert, 50 to 60 degrees, optimum temperature. And I think he said it was 70 or 80% protein, the spirulina. You'd be into this stuff. And he was saying, if we continue the way we're going, we're going to need 2 planets just to farm the meat that we need by 2050. And I can see Lisa's nodding her head. She knows all these stats. And so they were just putting up alternatives. And there was lots and lots of different people talking about all different things. This guy founded Wikipedia, and he's developed this new social network that's based more like Wikipedia, where you've got less people controlling it and more people, a group of people aggregating all the information, so you get better, more true news in your feed. I don't know, has anyone heard of Ethereum? Yep, this kind of a big deal. This guy started Ethereum. You've got the Center for Humane Technology, this guy Tristan Harris, who's looking at how addicted we are to all of the devices we have. This guy, Thierry Breton, he's from the EU Commission, and I turned on the news when I got back from the conference, and he's on the news on the stage announcing the things that he's announcing at the conference. And I'm like, wow, these people they have the attention of the world. So it was quite interesting to hear their ideas. This lady, Joy, she calls herself a code poet. And so her mum was an artist and her dad a scientist. And she's become this computer scientist who is very artistic. And she's got a company called the Algorithmic Justice League. I don't know if you've heard of that, but she looks at the coded bias, artificial intelligent facial recognition. I don't know if you've seen how for coloured women, how badly misrepresented they are by facial recognition, and some of the mistakes that are made, and how decisions and systems, and her whole thing is about bringing attention to it and showing where the big companies are falling down, looking at the numbers, the percentages of how often they get it wrong, and not naming and shaming them, but naming and changing the stats and trying to put it in the right direction. She was really pretty cool as well. So that's just a few. Then you've got like Nick Clegg, who's the policymaker, the big guy at Facebook, who was just getting torn down. We had Brittany, who's the whistleblower, Brittany from Cambridge Analytica. Have you guys seen that documentary? She's in the audience. She just stands up and starts going at him. It was like pretty crazy. Yeah, it wasn't an easy place to be Facebook, I don't think. So there's just a few that some of the people that I quite enjoyed. So throughout this conference, these were some of the currents. So back to that wave kind of metaphor, this idea of what are the things that are pulling you towards one session or to one conversation. Technology obviously was a big one. Sustainability was a very, very big topic. I knew it would be on the agenda, but I didn't realize quite how much. And then transparency, like how do we bring trust to all of our institutions, our systems, our technology? That was a huge topic as well. So then within those sort of currents, some of the big waves that just kept knocking me over were quantum computing. Who actually knows what quantum computing is? Just roughly, show of hands. Who thinks they know what it is? Who could stand up and describe in a sentence what it is? Please give me a go.
I think the idea is that instead of a normal computer where your bits are either 1 or 0, the bits in a quantum computer can be like both 0 and 1 at the same time. So it opens up a lot more computing potential for like power and other applications.
Everyone happy with that? Can see the future? Yeah, it's quite intense. Like I think you sort of hear these definitions, and I saw quite a lot of high level sessions on this, but they had deep dives, which I didn't go into, where they actually looked at what they're developing already. Now, Eben feels like it's still a long way away. I know this technology was invented 100 years ago, and we still aren't even close to seeing the application of it. But once it is, it's going, according to this crew, it's going to be a big deal. We had Jack Hittery, who's from Alphabet X. Do you know, it used to be Google X. He leads the artificial intelligence and quantum computing division, and he was like, trying to compare a computer to quantum, the computer we know to quantum is like comparing an abacus to the computer. Like it's hard to even grasp how far it's going to go. Artificial intelligence definitely was discussed a lot. The SDGs, who knows the SDGs? These little things. So I don't know if you've noticed, I got a little, I'm kind of converted to the cult now. Once you learn about these things and you see them come up again and again, I'll pass some of these around. These are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and it's like a global action plan that just about every organisation I met at this conference knew about them, knew how they were impacting, what their role was, and they knew how to measure it. And that was one of my big takeaways. I came back just going, we have to understand where we make that impact and how we measure ourselves against it. Purpose-driven businesses, yes, you will love this. It was just the hot topic. I've got a slide coming up which goes into that a bit further. And then the ethics and the governance. This lady, Maraki Sharkey from Stanford University, she was talking about just the fact that our democracy systems are not resilient to, like we have to look at our whole ethics and our whole governance system that goes around them, that we are not strong as a society. And if our democracy can't stand up to technology, what does that mean? And that the technology is in the hands of the wrong people. So there was lots of discussion about the mess that we're in and how do we get ourselves out of it. So sort of moments of like really heaviness, and then you meet someone who's doing something really cool. This is the audience here, so that's kind of what it looked like in the main hall. Does anyone recognise this lady, Maria Ressa? She was the Time Person of the Year in 2019. And she is a journalist, Filipino. I don't know if you've ever been to the Philippines, but really big use of the internet there. And 100% of people who have access to the internet use Facebook. And Facebook is their communication tool. And Facebook is rife with fake news and it has totally disrupted their government system. And she started something called Rappler, which was trying to bring truth back to journalism and had a lot of clashes with the government. And she told her story. I can share the link after. It's only about 20-25 minutes, but very powerful. And at the end of it, this tiny little woman who's come, she's come from the Philippines, she's doing her thing, she is Time Person of the Year, and this entire auditorium stood up and just kept clapping. And it was like goosebumps. Like it was an incredible moment where people understood that we need these single people to be making these huge leaps, risking their lives, going against everything of the systems that are built around them to create the change that we need. And so you had these moments where you go, this is absolutely fucked, to, but we have hope. And so there was all of these sort of up and down moments. This guy, Garry Kasparov, anyone heard of him? He was like the youngest chess champion. Yeah, and he was chess champion for like 20 years, and then he went up against Deep Blue, I think, the computer. And yeah, there's Mitch, everyone who knows Mitch, who used to work here, he wrote an article on this, and he was like total fanboy, so I was like tweeting Mitch when I was at the conference. But Garry has a really different attitude towards AI. He feels like we're going to be promoted as humans. We're going to get back time, the thing that we have been lacking through artificial intelligence. And if we use that for creative purposes, for being really strategic and solving the big problems, this is actually going to be a really good thing. So he was a really interesting speaker as well. So this one here, this was kind of an interesting slide, just a photo I took at the conference where they had about $34 billion worth of investment last year in Europe, and $4.4 billion was invested in purpose-driven European tech companies, which is a fair chunk. So that means that their core business model is positively impacting one of these SDGs. And they're still working out their measurement systems and how they actually track that, but it's pretty close. Now, the interesting thing is the whole ecosystem has grown 124% over the last 5 years, but this sector has got 6 times larger. So the purpose-driven businesses are getting 6 times more investment than they did 5 years ago. So there's a real trend here. And Europe, has a lot of heart. And they sort of joke that US has all the money, China has all the data, and Europe's got all the purpose. And actually we need all of these things to kind of connect up to each other. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I guess they talked about the business sense that consumers and tech talent alike demand this of the businesses they work for. And I don't know how you feel, but I know that I want to work in a company that actually means something, that knows what they're about and why they do what they do, and make a positive impact. And so that's going to be a real mission of mine this year. So everyone's familiar with this, right? I didn't start with this, even though this was my first impression when I arrived. So imagine we're a group of, I don't think anyone's arrived yet from my group. There were 4 or 5 Aussies that were all there together. And we're quite excited. Who's travelled as an Australian? Been out of the country? Yep. Have you generally been fairly well received? Yeah, like, a bit of larrikin, whatever. But normally a nice reception. Well, we all had koalas on our lanyards. Thought that was a great idea. Probably not very recyclable, and actually not that great idea now I think about it. But, we wore them proudly. And then we met for dinner at the end of the first day, and all but one person had no koala on their lanyard anymore. And no one had had this discussion, but everyone had just sort of put it in their pocket. And Australia was on the world stage at this event. And I didn't expect people in Europe would really give a damn about what Australia was doing, but Australia was on fire while this event was happening. The week before we arrived in Germany, Siemens were under fire. There were public protests about them contributing only $31 million worth of help to the Adani mine, but contributing infrastructure that 2 Australian companies said, no, we're not supporting this. And Siemens was still supporting it. So Germany had revolted. They were just like, we cannot support this. This is Siemens. We believe in you. You have made pledges and you're not holding up your end of the bargain. So people are asking me about Adani, and I'm thinking, I didn't expect to go to DLD and be having these conversations. They were clued up on the climate crisis, and they wanted to know what our leaders were going to do about it. And the first reaction was always, are you okay? Is your family okay? And you'd go, oh, yep, we're okay. And then it was like, okay, now I'm going to take you down. And it wasn't trying, I don't think they were trying to, they weren't trying to personally attack me, they were trying to understand. And they couldn't believe that, you're smiling, it's like, they could not believe that our reaction to this would be to still support these fossil fuels. And yes, we have an industry and we have a history, but there are other ways that we are going to make money. And the rest of the world, or at least Europe, is totally moving away. So the week before we got there, Microsoft also came out and said, by 2030, we're going to be carbon zero. By 2050, we are going to remove all historic emissions for our entire 75 years of trading. Like these are big companies making huge statements. BlackRock, the biggest lending institute in the world, they have said their $7 trillion is no longer available to companies that are supporting fossil fuels and not making, for their investments that aren't making a positive impact on climate change. They want to know why. And so there's this movement, and I guess, we talk about waves, like this wave is already in Europe, that tsunami is coming. And I think it was such a wake-up call for me and for these other Aussies who were just like, I felt really stupid. I didn't have the answers that I wanted, and I realized I wasn't literate enough on these topics, and it was embarrassing. So that was this is a little bit of a, I guess it's sort of a little bit of a sad point of the trip, but it was also probably the bit, I got to do something. We've got to do something. We've got to clean up our own backyard. And so we've come up with some ideas here for us as a company, where we can start, and then let's take that further. So I'd just point out as well, this slide came up, I reckon, about 12 times on different, it was crazy. Like, people kept using Australia as the case study. It was bizarre. So anyway, the other thing that came up a lot on slides were these sustainable development goals, and you're going to hear me banging on about them. I've laminated some things that we're going to just keep passing around, and this is going to underpin a lot of the work that I do with cobots.org. So in the room today, we've got some people that are really passionate about these topics. I think for Yaz, who's got a startup that's very circular economy, I'm guessing responsible consumption and production would be very much for you, number 12. What about for you, Lise? Climate action, yes. Lise is all over climate action. Anyone else got anything they're working on that kind of touches any of these goals, would you say? Dave, yeah?
Yeah, climate action.
Climate action? Yeah, cool. And Tia?
I would say all of them, but in general more around the quality education and partnerships for the goal.
Yeah, cool. So everyone I met could articulate what their goal was and how they connected to it. So that was interesting for me. And then I was like, I had like little moments of like, it looked familiar to me, and I'm like messaging Isaac. I don't know what time it was where you were or what time it was when I was. Might have been a bit of jet lag. But I was like, I've seen that grid somewhere before. So this is some of the artwork that Isaac's been working on around this idea of humans and bots working together. And it made me realize that these sustainable development goals are, as a platform for cobots, we can touch any one of them depending on who is using our platform and what they want to change in the world. So that was sort of quite a little aha moment for me. Thank you, Isaac. Now this here, there was a guy, quite a hairy looking dude, and one of the speakers, Mark Buckley. He gave a talk and he used Australia as his case study. And he was like, okay, imagine you're on the highway, you're going 100 kilometers an hour, and you're like, oh, damn it. You slow down, you're going the wrong way. Even if you slow down, you're still going the wrong way. Like, we actually have to do a massive U-turn here and change our thinking. And so that was kind of a little moment. This guy, Mark Buckley, he's created a mission statement around the Sustainable Development Goals, and he was an activist and really clued in, I guess, to what the UN is trying to do and trying to communicate that to the audience. So a little bit of sunshine or sparkle at the end of it was that, who knows Leanne Kemp, our chief entrepreneur? Yeah, she has a startup called Everledger, looks at blockchain technology and how do you map the life cycle, the history or the provenance of an item. She started in the diamond trade. She was telling me she saw the movie of, Blood Diamond, I think it is, with Brad Pitt many years ago, and just kind of planted an idea in her head. She went to like a hackathon or a startup weekend, put an idea out there, and now she's got this, I don't know how many millions of dollars now it's worth, and this amazing team around the world working on the provenance, not just of diamonds, but on all items. And she's just signed some contracts with some big fashion labels now. She's starting, I didn't realize that after fossil fuels, the biggest emitters are fashion. Like, you just don't think about these things. And yeah, she came up and she really made a point that if everyone could just think in their purchasing decisions, so pick up something, say that bottle of beer or that t-shirt you're buying or that, I don't know, whatever it is, that yellow rubber duck, and think, where did it come from? Do you know? Do you care? Try and work that out. And where does it go next when you're finished with it? And just that simple thought pattern, if you can apply that, and I've been trying to do it since I got back, and it's really hard. And so many times I go, actually, I've made this dream or this goal not to take any more bottles of water. Just don't even get involved with them. And then the first day I got back, I sat down in Brad's office and he like puts a bottle of water, the lady puts a bottle of water in front of me, and it's like, do you go thirsty? Do you drink the bottle of water? These small decisions that we make that are nothing on their own, but that change of thinking was quite massive for me. So anyway, let's keep it moving. So that was DLD. So got to go to this, I don't know, does anyone know where Davos is? 3.5 hours-ish drive from Munich. Had a look for accommodation, 2 nights, $17,000, a little bit outside of our budget. And so what does anybody do? They get an Uber, right? That's what you do, make friends with your Uber driver. Super Mario, we called him, and we were like, what, could you just do us a deal and take us in and hang out and take us back? And he was like, sure. So got an opportunity to go to Davos. So Davos, it happens every year. This is the 50th anniversary. It brings together heads of state, leaders of business, lots of decision makers in the world. You get Prince Charles, David Attenborough, Greta Thunberg, like you get a real mix of people all coming. You get there and the forums themselves cost between $60,000 and $200,000, or euros I think, to attend. So you have to be fairly cashed up. Then there's a whole lot of parties that happen around that, as any good event has. And those parties cost me about 300 euros just to get a hotel pass to go into one of these parties, which luckily the DLD sponsored for me. And then when you're queuing up in the line, you're just seeing all these random people that also have to queue in the line, like will.i.am, that singer? He's just queuing up for his hotel pass, It was quite bizarre. You're just walking down the street and you're like, everyone here is a leader in their own right of something. They really have made a big effort to be there. And you've got helicopters. This is my little helicopter. I think of it as being like a little bubble or a snow globe. So you've got helicopters coming into this little town. You've got Greta Thunberg and, the Extinction Rebellion did a big hike, a 3-day, 40-kilometre hike through the snow to cause a protest. It's just a crazy place. And so we got, this is us going 180 kilometres an hour on the Autobahn, just put that in. Can you see Mario's driving glove? Take it very seriously, luckily. There's me just going, what the hell am I doing here? The protest only managed to block one side of the road for a couple of hours and got hardly any press because, of course, that's probably not in the interest. But we just happened to be blocked by it, so we were 2 hours late, which was kind of interesting just to be a part of that. It was -9 degrees there, so it was pretty cold. And this little town, this is sort of a bit of a wide shot. That's how big it is. And so what they do is they kick everybody out or pay them a lot of money to get out for a week. And then each company moves into each shop. So the bakery becomes Microsoft. And they reskin it and they make it a showroom. And then they take it all out when they leave and it goes back to being a bakery. And the next shop along might be a post office and that becomes Cisco and Amazon. And it is bizarre. It's like you're in a Disneyland type place. And you can walk up and down these streets and Zurich Bank is giving out bright blue beanies and everybody's wearing bright blue beanies. So you got all these because everyone's cold, right? And so It felt bizarre. And then we walked in. Actually, none of the Orange Sky guys are here today, but they're one of the teams we're working with at the moment. And this here, I walked into Cisco, and they had like half a dozen of these 3D printed objects, and you just put one on the screen, and it starts playing a story. And the Orange Sky guys here from Brisbane were one of the Cisco case studies, and it's just like a worlds collide, you know, where you just, yeah, it was a bit of a dream. So we got there, and we didn't have very long. We got there at about, hey, how you going? Welcome, come find a seat. This is Leanne. She joined us, Leanne Kemp. She came on the trip to DLD and to Davos. You missed the DLD part, but I'm just on Davos explaining the crazy.
Did you have photos of our takeaway espresso martinis and me riding a lion? Yes.
No, didn't get to. Yeah. Yeah, so we did ride a lion. That was back in Munich. So you're in this crazy world of Davos, and at the same time, there's so much opportunity. You can meet anyone, but it's all quite random. Like, we were just kind of going into random shops, and I had a kebab next to these women who are running this incredible blockchain hackathon in the Netherlands, and you just kind of get chatting to random people, and it was quite the experience. So we didn't have very long, and we went into one place called the Equality Lounge, which just happened to be the SDG media zone. And, you know, I feel like I just keep banging into this rainbow of blocks. And this is where all the CEOs and leaders would go and talk about their impact on the SDGs and how they were trying to bring this to life in their businesses and organizations. And it was just one after the other after the other. Alongside that, they had a little stage where there's like 50 or so people sitting and watching. And you've got the CEO of Boston Consulting Group just sitting there talking about inclusivity. And next up, they had a woman, Kinergy, and she's like doing this thing for Oprah, and we were to do dancing. And then next thing, it's really heavy conversations. You know, it was just this bizarre world. And at one point, I saw this lady I recognized, so I waved and said, hello. And she's like, hello. And then I'm like, oh, Julie Bishop, right. One of those moments where you just like, everyone kind of seemed familiar, but you kind of thought you might have seen them somewhere, but oh yeah, you have seen them somewhere. And so at one point I was, this is at the actual event that we went to that evening, I was chatting to Matthias Cormann, and it was really interesting because he was there and he had a session where he defended, I guess, Australia and our role in the bushfires and our reaction to it. And pretty much the gist of what I got out of it was that he said, if we don't do it, someone else will, and we're doing it in the cleanest way possible. And it just felt like such a cop-out. And I don't know, I lost a little bit of heart, I think, for Australian politics. They were the two that I met when I was there. And then I met another German politician at this party who just hated Greta Thunberg with a passion. And I'm talking like wanted her dead. And she threatened, in his mind, everything he believed in. And she didn't know what she was talking about. And so it was just incredible to see this difference in reaction. You had some people who were so pro, let's do this, let's make this change, and other people who everything that we want to change kind of threatens what they've already got and what their future is. And so Liam made a really good point to me the other day. He's like, it's like you've got two really great tennis players, amazing at their game, hitting shots back and forth, but on next door courts, you know? They're not actually hitting on the same court. So how do we get them hitting on the same court? And this SDG piece for me was quite powerful because it gave us all a common language and a global set of goals a target to go for. Now the target is quite ambitious. By 2030, we have to make some massive changes, and we'll go into that a little bit more. Here we go. So, so this was Leanne doing her. Maybe you want to say a few words rather than me describe it. But Leanne did. She signed this incredible. She was what? How many panels were you on? Was it 2 forums or?
No, it was in 16.
16 panels in 4 days. I bumped into.
16 panels.
So people don't know our politicians, but they know Leanne. Like, I was like a groupie. I was like, yeah, I'm here with Leanne. Oh yeah, everyone knows who Leanne is. It was quite incredible. But Leanne is doing so many amazing things, trying to make the change that we need. So she has a startup, obviously, in blockchain. But this here is her signing the Future of Sustainable Data Alliance. So there's a group of different organisations that are part of this. It's all through the UN as well, the compact.
The UN,
Yep.
the IMF, the International Monetary Foundation Federation, Christine
And this is quite a significant moment, right? Like this.
It's stupid big.
Yeah. So at the moment, I guess I said one of the themes of this conference before at DLD was around transparency and trust. And if we don't have the data, if we don't have a place that people can go to for the true source of that truth, then how can we make good decisions? And so this is going to be quite transformational, I think. And then over here you've got Greta who's just speaking her truth, and you've got Donald Trump speaking his. And one of the things or the nice concepts that came out of it for me was people talking about this thing called the Greta effect. Has anyone heard of this term? This idea that Greta has given a voice to this whole new generation, but not just that they have a voice, that they're having these discussions at the dinner table, they're becoming climate literate, and they're actually almost encouraging that change from the bottom up. They're asking the questions to their parents, like really hard questions, like why is it this way? What needs to change? So yeah, it was a pretty crazy experience. This is just, I thought might be interesting to you guys. This was looking at, they put together the Future of Jobs report as part of the World Economic Forum. And in 2015, these were the top 10 skills that you needed in the future of work or jobs. And you can see, I mean, none of that's too crazy. You kind of go, yep. What I think is really interesting in 2020 is that creativity has moved to number 3. And we didn't even have emotional intelligence on there 5 years ago, and it's now number 6. So this complex problem solving and critical thinking in groups of people is always going to be important, but doing it with creativity and with empathy, like having that emotional intelligence, this is the future we're moving towards. So now I just want to play a little happy video. 60 seconds, it'll be really quick if you could just click it. So this is just looking at the challenge we have ahead of us and the gap.
Scientists point out that women and children will be the worst hit by climate change, despite this youth as
And we fool ourselves if we think we can fool nature. Because nature always strikes back.
The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say, we will never forgive you.
We got this warning in 2015 and we haven't made much progress. So it's like we needed to go up here and we've just kind of been cruising along here. And if you look at the emissions of the bushfire, we've already used up all of our emissions for the year. I'm guessing that's correct, at least. Can you fact check me there? Yep, thank you. And so we need to make some changes. But this can all feel a bit overwhelming. Like, what do we do in Brisbane with what we've got to start making these changes? And so it's great to know that there's these incredible young leaders that were there at World Economic Forum. Like Greta's one, but there are dozens of others from all different countries that are there speaking their truth and making a plan and leading the next generation. And these guys are going to be voting soon, which is really exciting, I think. And I think some of these older politicians, the particular one who wanted to kill her, he's scared, right? This is not good for him, nor should it be. And so I guess this is just something I wanted to show from DLD. So on the stage at DLD, you've got, this is Beppo, the street cleaner. Now he was just this paper statue that was leaning there the whole time. And I never knew what he was doing, you know? I was like, I didn't know his name was Beppo either. And he was just kind of like hovering over the shoulder. And so I just want to read you this little bit from the story it comes from. So Beppo's from a story called Momo. So sometimes when you've got a very long street ahead of you and you think how terribly long it is, you feel sure you'll never get it swept. He gazed silently into space before continuing, and then you start to hurry. You work faster and faster, and every time you look up, there's more to sweep. And you try even harder and you panic, and in the end you're out of breath and you have to stop. And still the street stretches away in front of you, and that's not the way to do it. He pondered a while and then he said, "You must never think of the whole street at once, understand? You must only concentrate on the step, the next breath, the next stroke of the broom, and the next, nothing else." And then he paused for thought before he added, "That way you enjoy your work, which is important because you make a good job of it, and that's how it ought to be." And then there was a last silence as he went on. "And all at once, before you know it, you find you've swept the whole street clean, bit by bit. What's more, you aren't out of breath, and that's important too." And I thought that was a really nice story, and it kind of is a good example of we've got so much to do, but if we sprint at this, we will get tired and we will annoy people, and I don't want to come back and be preaching about this. I just want to share this is something that is happening. There is a wave, and it is already in Europe, and it is on its way to Australia. And do we want to be prepared for it? And what can we do to help make that wave or that transition more smooth? So this is the question I'm asking. What positive change can we make collectively with the tools, the resources, and the influence that are available to us right now? And that comes back to that question, what are you adding? What have we got? And so I've been asking that question of myself, like in my home, in my family life, like what can I do? And then now we're asking that question, Eben and I, as the founders of this business, and asking our team, what does that look like? So when we think about this, we've got this incredible platform of CodeBots, of untapped potential. We know that it can build amazing things, but we haven't quite given it the legs or the wings to fly yet. Resources, like look at this room. Just have a little moment, just pat yourself all on the back. Actually, let me just give you a little bit of love. I was going to give you these love chocolates. It's Valentine's Day. And then our influence. What is our sphere of influence? Who do we know and who cares what we think that we can help spread this message? And I guess, I don't know, I look at each and every one of you and you're all here today, which says something incredible, that you care and you want to do something about this and you want to support this mission. So what are we going to do? Let's get into the actions, because all of this talk and excitement. We've chosen number 13 to start with. Now we want to first commit to becoming carbon neutral as a company this year. It's a journey and we don't know enough about it and we're not experts at this, but that's part of our mission. But we want to use the bots to measure our progress on this journey. So we want to make the default app when you get to CodeBots to be the ability to be able to map your own carbon emissions. So as we evolve our ability to measure this, we're going to share that with everyone who uses our platform, and hopefully they'll use that as a base and build on it and make it even better. So that's something, and we've actually got a team lined up to start scoping that maybe. Yep, so that's kind of in the works. Action 2, we're going to start empowering a community of champions and give them access to CodeBots and try and give them momentum to what they're trying to do. So if you look at all of these little, recognize the cubes, I've started to kind of connect the dots now. How do we help Yaz with the world's biggest garage sale and her circular economy ideas to help give momentum to this? She needs some technology. We have a platform. How do we make that happen and how do we support her on that journey? Not just with the technology, but with the community of people that are going to support her and help her. And also, it's not just tech support, it's moral support, right? Like we need to kind of give her the resources, the support, and the technology. We're also talking to the guys at Orange Sky, and we're going to do a little bit of hacking with them to kind of solve some problems. And that's just the beginning. I met so many people on this trip. I feel like once we get this going, there's no stopping it. And then third, I think at the real core of this, or the heart of it, and which is why I wanted to do this on Valentine's Day, not any other day, which didn't quite fit with when I got back, but I was like, no, let's hold, is that the heart behind the business is as important. The reason we do it is as important as how we do it. And so on Monday next week, for CodeBots, we're running a session to create a new manifesto. You've probably seen manifestos for other businesses. You've got the Agile manifesto, you've got lots of different big corporate manifestos, you've got not-for-profit manifestos, you've got ideas of what is that guiding principle that you follow. And so we're going to do that next week. Isaac is going to run the session and do his magic, and then hopefully we're going to do the same with WorkingMouse and with Rogue 2. So if you want to get involved, some of the cool things that are coming up, we've got the Next Gen Startup Weekend happening on the 13th to the 15th of March. We're going to sponsor it, and we're going to send as many people as want to go to it, and we're just going to go with our ideas of the things that we want to pitch and the change we want to make in the world, and try and use CodeBots where we can to support some of that momentum. So that's going to be pretty cool. Who's been to a hackathon or a startup weekend? Is there There's a few people here. Anyone kind of interested in it? We might do another little session where we kind of actually go into what do you actually do at these things. I think Everledger, well, the original thought of it was started at a hackathon, right? Yep, so be careful, you could end up doing crazy things out of a hackathon. I guess the next thing is about sharing your knowledge or your network. Like, we are not experts at carbon footprinting. We do not know what we're doing. I've started talking to people, but but this is the journey, and we have given that power away. We have said there are leaders, there are experts out there who know how to do this stuff. I don't need to know. And then you go, well, I'm too small to make a difference. And I'm calling bullshit. I'm saying we've all got the power to make a difference in some kind. And so we're going to have a go at it. So if you know anyone in your network, Lise, I'm looking at you. Yeah, we're going to be kicking that off soon. And also other champions who you think, wow, they are doing good things. Think about those 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and they need technology. Tia, I'm looking at you. Tia's launching the Impact Tech Summit here in Brisbane. First time it's ever run, 19th to the 21st, and it is going to be in Brisbane.
Yeah, so
yes.
The night, do you want me to?
Yeah. No, do it.
So it's really interesting. It's amazing to see and your passion that you came back with, and how like a switch has been switched on. You're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is amazing. Impact Tech is essentially technology companies that are focused on solving complex problems that have to do with the SDGs. So an impact tech can be a social enterprise. It can also not be a social enterprise. It can be a profit purpose business that uses technology to solve something. So we have on the summit, which is going to be the first one in Australia. Impact Tech is quite prolific in the rest of the world. Australia is a little bit slow in adaptation, but we're doing amazing things. So the summit is going to bring together experts from around the world. So we have some people flying in from Korea, from South Korea, from Europe, from the United States, and from the UK, and people from Australia, speakers from Australia. And everybody has a different perspective around how to build and how to shift and how to create more impact tech. So on the 19th, there's a networking event. On the 20th is the full summit, where it's full on talks from different people. And on the 21st is master classes of a whole bunch of different of the experts that are coming. And all the information is on the website interwovenhq.com.
Thank you, Tia. So Tia actually joined CodeBots quite a few haircuts ago, and came on in a community role. And it's quite exciting to have her back in the fold, because we knew this was coming. We knew that having purpose with your business, it's not mutually exclusive, and that we could do amazing things. And so it's really nice to have her back involved. So now my question to you, what are you adding? I want you just to take that, put it in your back pocket, and go and have a think about it, because I think like each person has a different answer. You all have different talents. You all have different networks of people or things that you're involved in. And so just think about those little things that you can do to start impacting. And if you're interested in the Startup Weekend, let me know. It's going to be quite amazing. We've got quite a few people that are keen. So I think, yeah, it's a bit nuts. You may not sleep. It's sort of one of those things where you get really excited about your idea you're working on. Anyone can pitch an idea. So if you've got an idea in the back of your head you've been wanting to put out there, it's a good time to do it. So now what I'm going to do is, I've lost my connection. Do you mind flicking to the next one? If everyone can pull out their headphones, we're going to go on a little Keeping the Waves Alive. This is going to take about 20 minutes. So if you need to go or need to go to the bathroom or anything, just, we can wait a minute. Everyone needs to go to podcast.meditativestory.com. And we're going to listen to a story together. And on that slide before, you could see a whole lot of people kind of with their eyes closed listening to stories. This is something that we did at the conference, and it was quite amazing to go through this process together. Meditative Story was started by June Cohen, Ariana Huffington, and I forget the guy's name. And they basically had an idea that if they could tell these life-changing stories of kind of notable people, and they could put some reflective, sort of meditative questions within the stories, it could be quite transformative. So they're really good stories. There's about 20 in the first season already. I think this is on to the second season. The good thing is Salesforce sponsor it, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but it means they're really good quality because they can pay for all the really expensive gear. And yeah, so once you've got it loaded, maybe just put your hand up and then We'll have a go.
Are you just going to play it through the speakers as well?
Can do.
So I don't think, has everyone got headphones?
Has anyone not got headphones? You need headphones, you need headphones. All right, so we can put the headphones, we can put it on the loudspeaker as well. It's a bit more personal when you've got your headphones in because it feels you're not hearing all the noises, but yeah, we can put it on the, yeah, do you want to?
Yeah. Were there many people without headphones?
3 or 4, yeah. Well, we'll hit it at the same time, so I don't know. Is it going to be too loud? All right. Okay, so how many people don't have headphones? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do we have 5 more pairs of headphones? Let me just see, and if we don't, we can do it on the...